Good morning, Facebook Live. Hello, Facebook, YouTube. It is August 17th. One of my daily updates. I am live here. It is in the morning, 9:15. I had a break in my schedule this morning. Had some stuff moved around with some coaching clients, so I'm free this hour, which I'm normally not. So let's see my sound check. Let's do my sound check. Yesterday I had a problem with the microphone. Hopefully that's solved today. I hope it's solved today. Jamie, did you get them? Yep, good. Yeah, my microphone was staticky yesterday. Somebody commented new microphone. It's not a new microphone. It's the Rode Podcaster that I've been using for a long time. I have two Rode podcasters, podcaster mics here on my desk here. So when Jamie and I do them together, we have both mics going to forming an aggregate device to both have both inputs on the Mac computer here. So, good morning, everybody tuning in. If you're tuning in, drop a comment, hashtag live. If it's on the replay, hashtag replay. If it's on YouTube, it's always on the replay. So thank you for tuning in, however you're tuning in, wherever you're tuning in, and whenever you catch this. So I want to talk today about something about wine. I was talking about this on my Facebook Live, and I got cut off yesterday. Suppose if I were to unplug my mic, if I were to unplug this mic, because the mic was static yesterday, I tried to unplug it, and it killed my Facebook Live yesterday. That's, if you were watching yesterday, abruptly ended. That's what happened. So, good morning, everybody tuning in. Of course, Jamie's there. I see Gina's there. A bunch of other people. All right. So, I want to continue the conversation about cheap wine, what goes into cheap wine, what the actual producer of the grapes actually makes. So there's a great series right now on Netflix called Rotten, 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 and for somebody like me, I just totally geek out on stuff like that because just talking about food politics and ethics and morals and all this kind of stuff that I've been preaching for years. For over 20 years on food. So it's really interesting. Hopefully I'll be able to learn some new things. I love learning. I had a great learning session last week on coffee from a local coffee importer from Colombia. So I love learning. So Rotten is really good for me to brush up on some things and continually improve what we're doing here at the restaurant. The first episode I watched was about avocados, which I knew almost everything about the avocados because I'd done lots of in-depth research. I just didn't realize how deadly avocados were. So the cartels in Mexico, it's really unsafe. A lot of abductions for ransom, and even murders over avocados. And of course, tequila or agave can be the same way, and I've known that as well. In fact, one of our agave brands that we use, the husband was killed in the 90s over the agave wars. You know, they go in and they kill people that have a large supply of these items in Mexico, so it can free up the supply for other people, or decrease the production so the price raises and everybody gets more of a fair share of their money. So it goes both ways, and these cartels are pretty bad. I didn't know how bad the avocado industry was plagued with the cartels and the destruction and the violence and the abductions, all from the Mexican avocado. So pretty sad, and a lot of them take things into their own hands and walk around with machine guns and everything to protect themselves, to protect their people, their crops, their family, things like that. So it's pretty sad about the Mexican avocado. Of course, the California avocado wasn't plagued with that. The California avocado is plagued with drought. Lots of drought in California right now currently. So if you have to eat an avocado, where do you go? What do? You definitely avoid Chilean, because Chilean is the worst of all the avocados. They just rob the water rights. These big companies and the locals don't have any water anymore. And that's what I talked about about a year ago. See, so California has a season for avocados, which I was preaching a year ago. It ends about July-ish, like April to July-ish is the avocado season from California, and that's when you can get awesome California avocados. And then the rest of the year it's Mexican, and most Chilean avocados actually get imported to Europe. So I did a whole series on that last year, probably in last May of 2020 on avocados. So that's out there on our Facebook if you just go through our search. if you go to our profile and search on our fan page, you can actually search people's profiles. I'm not sure if many people you know that, but if you're looking for a topic, especially from us, you just go to our profile, hit the search button on Facebook, and type in avocados, type in, Brunello wine or whatever, and it'll tell you every time we've posted a topic, something on that topic. So that's really cool. It's a way to search people's personal profiles and business profiles. So now on to wine. I watched the wine episode on Rotten, and wine. I've been around cheap co-ops in wine in Spain, and Spain there was a couple co-ops I just was not happy with, especially the one co-op that produced 10 million bottles. It was insane, the size of a football field, and it wasn't the type of wine that we wanted to support at the restaurant. It wasn't that personal connection. It wasn't what I felt the growers were getting paid fairly for. Just that just my intuition was like, this is not. And we've been to a couple of vineyards that are like that, or wineries on these co-ops, and I'm like, I just don't feel it with these wineries. I just don't feel they're doing the right thing. And some co-ops are better than others. And co-ops are great to a certain extent for wineries because it helps them get paid for their grapes, but not when they abuse the wages or abuse the prices. So restaurants are notorious, and especially grocery stores. And I was saying this yesterday about Walmart. So Walmart has all these deals with everybody they buy from. Like they want to be the very cheapest supplier of these products. So when you buy a Samsung TV at Best Buy and you buy what appears to be the same Samsung TV from Walmart, 27-inch, 40-inch, almost identically the same, controls look the same. It's not the same TV. The insides are different. They make them cheaper for Walmart. So Walmart goes to these people and say, okay, we want that 40-inch TV that's in Best Buy, but you're going to give it to us for this and not what Best Buy is paying for it or whatever other store. So Samsung formulates this TV to meet their specifications and produce a cheaper product. And in turn, Walmart says to Samsung, well, you have to guarantee your product 100%. We don't care if somebody walks in a year later with a broken TV. You need to replace it on your dime. We're not covering that. And this is why the return policy at Walmart is so lenient, because their producers or suppliers are in it for 100% on those. And even like when it comes to nutritional supplements and stuff like that, like you'll notice, like if you buy like the Vega protein from Walmart versus like Whole Foods, it's a different formula. Because again, Walmart goes to Vega, they go to Brendan Brazier and say, okay, if you want to have your product in our store across the country, the largest retailer, it has to come in at this price point. And Brendan Brazier goes back to the drawing board and goes, well, gee, I can't come in at that price point for the same stuff that I'm giving the Whole Foods. But yet Walmart wants to look, act, feel, appear to be the same. So he reformulates it and puts more soy protein as opposed to pea protein in it. So it's a cheaper product. And then it goes to Walmart as, under the Vega label, as what you think is coming from Brendan Brazier, which it is, but it's just a cheaper product. So this is how these massive stores work. And it's no different with wine. Wine is exactly the same way. So these big chains, like grocery stores especially, New York grocery stores are not allowed to sell wine. A lot of other states, grocery stores are indeed allowed to sell wine. I'm all for wine. I'm against wine being in grocery stores because it helps the cheap wine production. I've known this for years. It just fuels the very, very cheap, inexpensive wine production. It puts a lot of pressure on the growers, a lot of pressure on the producers to come in at these low grocery store prices that the consumer wants or the grocery store is demanding. So the cheaper the wine, the less percentage the actual grower makes. So now in France, we were talking about, I'm going to give some references in France, how much percentage goes back to the grower. The Languedoc region in southern France is France's largest region in wine production. They make a third of all of French wines. They actually make 5% of all the wines that are consumed globally. So 5% of all the wines consumed globally are from the Languedoc in France. Jamie, did you know that? 5% of all the wines consumed globally are from Languedoc. That's how large Languedoc is. They produce a third of all of France's wine. So the Languedoc is a big region, lots of producers, lots of shortcuts, lots of great wine coming from there too, but lots and lots of producers, lots of grapes, lots of chemicals, lots of things going on to make production to its peak. To get French wine, because there's an allure on French wine, right? There's such an allure for French wine wherever you're at across the world. If it's French wine, it must be better. So Languedoc is able to produce these vast quantities of wine at these much lower price points that when somebody walks into a store in China, in Germany, in the U.S., in Mexico, in Brazil, and they go to the shelf and buy a bottle of French wine, they can afford something from France from the Languedoc. So these stores go in, these massive stores go in and beat these producers up. They beat the producers up and say, you have to come in at this price if you want your, like if you think about it, if you were to go into a major chain grocery store that is in 5, 6, 7, 10 states, and they have one, they go to a producer for wine, they're going directly to the producer and saying, okay, if you want to be in our store, you basically got to come in at these price points, because we really just can't stock your product. We're buying, 50 stores times 10 states, or 25 stores times 10 states. We have 200 stores that we need to make sure you're going to have enough production and the price is right so we can make margins and we can sell it and we can move it. So the producer's like, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? Like the higher end wines it's different for, but the lower end wines between $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $12, it is horrific what's happening to the actual person who's actually growing the grapes and how much they get paid. Because of this just trickles all down to, now let's just beat up the person who actually grew the grapes, who's had the vineyard for 4 generations, who has the land, who pays the taxes, who pays the employees, who barely pays himself. And one of the owners of the vineyard, one of the vineyards in Languedoc, says, I don't even get paid minimum wage. If you look at all the hours I work and what I actually make, I don't make minimum wage. It's sad. So here's what actually happens when you buy one of those cheap bottles of wine. Now, there are cheap bottles of wine, inexpensive bottles of wine, great value wine, that doesn't quite follow this ratio. And this is where Jamie and I really love to go in to a small family-run vineyard that's doing the right thing, that they're not under the pressure of going to these big stores. They can't produce enough to go into the big stores. But, when we buy a bottle of wine from a small producer where we're paying $9 a bottle wholesale for, we know that the adequate share is going back to the actual vineyard winery owner, because they haven't scaled to be in the grocery stores and to be at these Walmart type levels. So they don't have to cut corners like that. They're getting paid what they deserve. They're charging what they deserve to make as a fair living. Everybody's entitled to a fair living, right? Or more than a fair living. If you pour your heart and soul into a product and the dedication, you should make enough to be able to take your family on vacations, pay for things for your kids, and be able to drive a decent car, a nice car, have a house, and do all this kind of stuff that is part of the entrepreneurial dream. So and do it legitimately. So when you go to a store to buy, a grocery store to buy a cheap bottle of wine that's $7, $8, $9, $10, only 6% of that bottle of wine, what you paid, goes back to the person who grew the grapes. Only 6%. When you buy a bottle of wine that is $27, 35% goes back to the actual person who grew the grapes and produced the wine. 35%. That's a massive, massive, massive difference. So can you see the pressure that it takes to produce wine at a high volume for 6% going back to the producer, back to the grape grower, only 6%? They have to cut corners. They've got to spray. They've got to get maximum yield. They don't really care about the quality anymore because, there's almost 80 additives that are allowed to be added to wine that you don't know about, that are not on the label, that will help stabilize color, flavor the wine, to produce like yellowtail, like a year in and year round. In Europe alone, there's over 55 chemicals, additives are allowed to be put into wine that you'll never know. It's not on the label. In the U.S., there's close to 80 additives that are allowed. So when it's a bad year for grapes, right, they're going to go in and they're going to change the color, they're going to change the flavor profile, they're going to change things in that wine to make it think like, ooh, like this French wine is so great at $7, $8 a bottle. Look at this $10 bottle of wine I bought at whatever grocery store. It's great. It's a $10 bottle and it's wonderful and it's great year after year after year. Folks, they're robbing the producer. They're stabilizing it. They're altering the wine. They're doing things to wine. And then when people come into the restaurant, like, oh, I know this great bottle of wine you should have here. And I look at the wine, I look at the label, I'm like, great bottle of wine. Not even beginning to think of how we source our wine here at the restaurant. Back to this person who bashed us 2 months ago or 3 months ago this summer. It was around, I don't know, June or July. Beginning of July, this local person bashed us on our wine because they didn't read the price. They didn't read the price point on the wine. They didn't read the menu. And I've done a couple of Facebook lives about this. They gave us a bad review, and we gave them $22 credit, and they still went online, wrote us a bad review, and they claimed that they don't have much money and they're on a budget. Well, if you don't have much money, you're on a budget, then you're going to look at the prices of a glass of wine, and especially when Patrick, our one of our team members here, offered them the bottle to save the money. They would have saved $22 if they would have bought the bottle. I mean, it was one of those wines that when you go to the store, it's a $27 bottle of wine in the store. It's a $27 legitimate bottle of wine in the store, and for $14 a glass in a restaurant is a bargain. Because normally, what happens is in restaurants, this is how restaurants work. If you go into a restaurant and pay, this is how it's supposed to work. If a restaurant pays $9 for a bottle, they should charge $9 a glass. Whenever they pay for the bottle, they charge for the glass. There's no way I could charge $22 for $23 for a glass of wine, so we charged $14. I took the margins way less because I wanted to offer a really high quality Napa Valley family-run winery that's doing the right thing that I personally been there and seen the operation. I wanted to offer something that I thought was exceptional this summer and do it at a way less cost than any other restaurant would do it and me not make as much money. So I severely underpriced this wine at $14 a glass, and I thought it was fantastic, and people loved it. And this person at $14 a glass bashed me online and went off on us, and we even told her, buy the bottle, it's cheaper, like it's more cost effective. No. And then you give the person a $22 credit because you feel bad. Patrick took $22 out of his pocket because he felt bad. Now this person's like, well, I just don't make enough money, and and started doing the whole poverty thing. You know what? It when it's not my fault, when I'm trying to do the right thing and buy the right quality wines. The 90% of the wines on our list, 90% of our 200 wines on our list are wineries that Jamie and I have personally been to. We've shaken hands with the owners. We've walked the vineyards. We've been into the cellar. We've seen what they're doing personally, and we want the money to go back to them. When we went to Spain that one time and we walked into this one winery, we were buying the wine. I thought I didn't do my research at the time. I was so guilty. Did not do my research. I had a great rating. It was a Verdejo from Ribera del Duero region. Jamie and I are driving. And we're like, oh, there's that winery. This happened in Spain. This happens whenever we go, oh, there's that winery we know. Turn around, pull in. So we saw this winery. We stopped, turned around, pull in, and we're like, where's the winery at? It's a cute little Spanish town, all these old medieval buildings. And we look over, and there's this massive building. Literally, it looks like the size of a football field, a dome, right? A domed stadium. And I'm like, there's the sign. So we walk in. We're met by the security. We end up meeting the export director. But I'm like, this is not the way we want to buy wine. I don't care if the wine is $4 a bottle or $12 a bottle might cost. I don't care if it has 93 points. This is not the wine that we want to serve. It's not the scaling of wine. It's not the mass production. One of the Alianicos, the Terrassis that we buy, the Falanginas that we buy from Campania, Luciano started this vineyard because his family vineyard does 8 million bottles. And he goes, that's not the way you produce wine, guys. You just don't produce wine. The Gregory Sanfrido wine from Campania is a big brand. It's in every Italian restaurant across the country, every grocery store. And he told us, this is not the way you make wine. This is just a production. So he opened up a very small winery, Venosia, in the area in Avellino, where he produces much more hands-on, small crafted wineries. He's at the vineyard. The grapes are growing outside. So, it's just a total different mindset of how to buy wine and where the money's actually going. So just thought those would be some interesting statistics every time you buy, in the grocery store that is, where there's price-conscious wines in those big box stores, only 6% actually goes back to the actual person who is producing the wine. Lots of chemicals, lots of stabilizers, lots of colorings make the wine the same year in and year out, and that's the name of the game. So every time you buy a bottle of Yellowtail, every time you buy a bottle of Barefoot, every time you buy a bottle, those are the brands, and there's a lot more brands that are like that are under extreme pressure from the retailers to keep that wine as low as possible. And of course, you know what happens. Quality diminishes, all that kind of stuff. So we had a really great night last night. We had I was in the kitchen, and Michelle, our chef, is on vacation with her family in Florida, and so I'm in the kitchen. So I didn't get as much time to go out into the wine dinner as possible last night. But we had a sold-out wine dinner again, and we featured some wineries from upstate New York, from the Finger Lakes, that are family-run, small production wineries that I feel are a good value. And what I feel is a good value may not be cheap. I just feel for what they're doing with a lot of the wines, for what they're doing, the quality of what we're doing, for what they're charging, I think is a good value, even though it might be a $30, $40 bottle or a $9 bottle. There's value in every level. So I always tell people, if you want to go to a restaurant and get a really good value on a bottle of wine, do not order by the glass. Do not just sit there and order 2-3 glasses of Chardonnay, 4 glasses of Chardonnay. The wines that are on there by the glass are under sometimes the same extreme pressures as the grocery stores. These chefs, these restaurant owners, these people that are responsible for these wine lists at restaurants, especially by the glass, will go and beat up their distributors, buy the cheapest possible wines, literally buy like $5 bottles of wine to sell for $10 a glass. There's no value in that for you as the end consumer. Now, on the other side, the Turnbull that would cost you $27 in the store that I was selling for $14, that's an exception, a rare exception, where you're going to get an amazing value for your dollar, right? And you're not going to get like that kind of value at all on a restaurant wine list by the glass. I mean, that's just something that we just did this summer because we love doing it, and I love that wine. And like our Sloop Juice Bomb, $5 a pint. Well, everybody else is charging $8 a pint. Everywhere else, everybody's charging $8 a pint. Throughout the whole state of New York, it's $7-8 a pint. We're charging $5. We did that because I like Sloop. I wanted to offer a great value to everybody, and we move a lot of Sloop as subsequence. So, I'm gonna sneeze. All right. So, if you want to get a great value of wine on a wine list in a restaurant, you'd actually look to the higher priced wines. Because the higher priced wines don't get marked up as much. Now, sometimes restaurants do stupid, ridiculous things, and they'll buy a $100 bottle of wine and charge $400 for it. But sometimes a restaurant will buy a $100 bottle of wine and only charge $150 for it. So you see where I'm going? The more you spend, the less of a markup there is. And there's a scale. We have this in our coaching academy on how to price alcohol on our online tutorial videos. So there's a scale that came out from Cornell that that if a bottle of wine is under $5, you times it by 4. If a bottle of wine is up to $10, $5 to $10, you times it by 3.5. If it's over $20, you times it by 2.5. If it's over $30, you times it by 2. If it's over $50, you times it by 1.5. So a $50 bottle of wine is literally $75. If you're buying a $20 bottle of wine, it's $60, right? So a $20 bottle of wine for $60 or a $50 bottle of wine for $75. You see, so the sliding scale allows restaurants to charge less of a margin, but hopefully make more money, because you're still making a good profit on a higher priced bottle of wine. Well, some restaurants get very greedy and they're like, no, I'm gonna take everything. And this is where you go to restaurants and you see like Cristal for like $500. You're like, really? You're gonna take Cristal at 100 and something a bottle and mark it up 4 times, 3.5 times? Like, you don't need to do that with Cristal. You don't need to do it, but some places will do that. So, but most places understand that sliding scale. So you can walk in and buy a bottle of wine for $80, $100. That is so much of a better value than those $10 glasses of wine that you're buying that are made with cheap, inexpensive, abused wine. So that's how that works. And I'm not saying go out and spend $100 on a bottle of wine every time, but if you're looking for a better value, you got a little more to spend, that's what you want to do. You want to really look through the list and get a suggestion from the wine captain, from the wine sommelier, from the owner. If you come here, you're getting a suggestion from me. in most cases, of you tell me your price point, your budget, and what you look for and what you drink, and I'm going to help you pick out a nice bottle of wine in there. We lowered all of our prices for the pandemic. Every single bottle of wine we lowered in the restaurant. If it was $150, it went to $109. I mean, we just dropped prices severely on everything because when the pandemic hit, I didn't want to be stuck with things. I wanted to move things. I wanted to create revenue. And so even though we've bumped up our menu prices on our food, a lot of our wine prices have not changed. And there's a lot of amazing, amazing values on our wine lists right now. I mean, all of our sparkling wines, all of our traditional method champagne style wines, $69, $79, $59 for some of them. And if you think about it, that's $15 a glass. You go to any restaurant and you buy cheap Prosecco, it's $12 a glass. Like cheap Prosecco is $12 a glass in any restaurant. And you can buy like a high quality method champenoise for $60 on our menu here. That's a bargain. So for that one person to bash us and take her financial problems on us and write a review and go all out and still get credit, it's just so unnecessary. So unnecessary. And I don't care if they don't come back because I don't want to deal with people like that. I should be able to a certain extent to pick the clientele that I want to deal with. And I think a couple of times of me putting it out online, they're not coming back. So, and they even threatened in the review not to ever drink here again. So why would you come out and eat here when you have several good meals here, and you cry poverty and it's my fault? Yeah, so that's the situation. So that sheds a little bit on the wine world. So a lot of people go to the store and they're buying that $7, $8 bottle of wine and thinking that this is the best wine ever. In reality, people were suffering from it. Lower wages were paid. Chemicals are being used. Stabilizers are being added. Coloring's being added. Sugar's being added. Things are being added to that wine to keep it at that $7, $8, $9 price point. Or you can go to a wine shop that cares with what they buy and still buy something in that same price point where the owner of the vineyard and the wages are much, much, much better because they're not under those extreme pressures to produce very cheap wine. So that's the story with that. All right, folks. So that is it for now. I've got to get on another phone call here at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go to my other channel, Marcus Guiliano, my coaching channel, and do a Facebook Live over there and drop some business advice for fellow restaurant owners and anybody else, other entrepreneurs can jump on that channel. It's Marcus Guiliano. It's my Marcus Guiliano fan page. So, all right, folks, that's it. Everybody have an amazing day, and we'll talk to you later.